And now, as we enter this time of meditation, I invite you to relax even more. To close your eyes if you choose, and just to be present with the breath. And amid the great anticipation and excitement around the world, what we truly anticipate is the birth of the awareness that we are all one with God. And setting aside any concerns, breathing them out. Opening more to spirit. Allowing yourself to become fully present to this moment. And let us feel our connection with our ancestors and the countries from which they came, with the special holiday traditions that they observed. Let us feel our connection with those around the world. And each life is woven from the threads of culture, belief, tradition, and no life is lived alone. We feel our connection with the light of all life. And know that each person here adds their own light. Just as the individual lights on the Christmas trees shine forth, connected with each other, so too are we connected, lighted by Source. The music and poem of Christina Rossetti. Love came down at Christmas. Love all lovely, love divine. Love was born at Christmas. Star and angels gave the sign. So let us rest, knowing all is well, as we open to angelic presence and divine wisdom signs. So rest in your star-bright spirit now, in the silence. And as we return our awareness to this room, let us give thanks for good news of great joy for all people. And with grateful hearts, we allow this joy to shine within and from us in waves of illuminating love. And so it is. Amen. Christine, and welcome back. Okay, now that we are in heavenly sleep, we get to wake up. Well, a little girl was so excited that she got to play Mary in the church Christmas play. And her first lines that she had were telling Joseph the good news. So she turned to him and said, "Joseph, I'm having a baby." And then she looked around and she exited off the stage and she said, "And by the way, it's not yours." Don't you love the kids? They just tell it like it is, right? Well, welcome to our third week in Advent in this season of light. Oh boy. Have you been enjoying the lights at night? Aren't they gorgeous? Just beautiful. And I love when I drive into my neighborhood and I have some neighbors that have gone full out, you know? Just like the whole thing is decorated and outlined and sometimes flashing, or these little, I don't know what they are, down the side of the building, and it's just so creative. And light speaks to an ancient part of ourselves, doesn't it? That just evokes feelings of safety and warmth and shelter, hearth and home. So, parties, platters, presents, people, and fruitcake. There's a rumor in my family that there's a fruitcake that's been circulating since 1963. I keep waiting for an Amazon delivery. Does anyone still make fruitcakes? Anybody? My mom used to make those, yeah. All those secret ingredients that last forever. So along with our outer preparations to celebrate the great light of hope, the birth of Jesus, there's a lot of inner preparation, isn't there? We take this time for inner preparation to attend to a new dimension of our Christ self that is growing and forming and preparing to come forth, to reveal itself, to come forth and express through you. So this Advent season is about making room for the holy, attending to the holy within ourselves, to let it come forth even more. It's already here. We just have to allow it to come through. So love is the divine quality that we're calling forth today. And a little later on in the service, we'll have an activity that honors those we have loved and those who may not be here physically, but are still very much on our hearts, whether they move far away or they live far away, or they have passed on, or maybe they live pretty close, but we haven't been able to see them. Just those who are on our hearts, we'll have a little activity with that. And that's what those little tags are for. So keep those around. We're going to do something with those towards the end of the service. So we know that we are shaped by those we love and those who love us. Think of all the people in your life that have shared their gift of love with you. And would you be the same person without that, without them? Probably not, right? So love is that great transformer. And we have an affirmation to remind us of that. And I will say it and then say parts of it and ask you to repeat if you choose. So our affirmation is, a steady stream of divine love pours through me, blessing others and myself. A steady stream of divine love pours through me, blessing others and myself. Well, let's say that a couple of times. I guess you don't need a little part to repeat. We got it, right? A steady stream of divine love pours through me, blessing others and myself. A steady stream of divine love pours through me, blessing others and myself. And once more, quiet. A steady stream of divine love pours through me, blessing others and myself. So we are aware of the steady stream of divine love that is flowing through us. So I also want to remind you that, I wrote myself a note here, that this is the time of year that if you wrote a letter to God last year, did anybody do that last year? We were virtual online and we mailed out little dissolving papers and instructions for a letter to God. If you did that last year and you put it away on your altar or your Bible or a special place, now's the time to get it out and see what you intended for the year, and to see the blessings that have come forth this year. So this is good to do too before we have our special services with the melting bowl, letting go of 2021. It's really good to see what all the good that came forth. And that your longing, your heart's desire put out there that came back to you. So love was Jesus' message and his greatest commandment. In John chapter 13, verse 34, a new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so must you love one another. So what kind of love is that? Is that a conditional love? No. A give so I can get scorecard kind of love? No. Activating this divine love is an expansive love. It's unconditional. It gives. It gives without any expectation of return. It can't help but give. It pours forth from us. Sometimes easier said than done, right? I don't know about you, but when I go to a store now and looking for parking, I'm in the prayer for protection the whole time. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us wherever we are. God is. I am. And everyone gets a parking spot. And if somebody wants mine right there, go for it. I can walk a few extra steps. So sometimes it's easier said than done, to be that light, to be that love. And we show up somewhere expecting, where's the light? Like this tree. Thank you, Kathy, for getting our little tree here. That's like, wait, it has lights. Where's the light? And when we don't see the light, guess what? You're it. You're it. So that's why we come here. Right? To remember the truth of who we are and our divine essence and our spiritual tools that we can use and wake up to and remember, like, oh yes, I can pray, I can meditate, I can call silent unity, I can do some affirmations to align myself and remind myself of my wholeness and oneness with God right here, right now. And I will say, I did have some slides, but the computer was not wanting to have a relationship with me this weekend. So I just accepted that. And we have 2 slides from last week. So the Christmas story, with the birth of the great light of hope for humanity, took place in a time of great uncertainty and a time of change. Kind of like we're in now, a time of change and uncertainty that persistently calls us to seek the calm, to be the light, to lift our minds and our hearts to a new understanding and a new way of being, to come more from our divine essence, to be that light when we're expecting it and it's not showing up. to bring it and share it. And that takes courage, because when we're the light, we're more visible, right? So that does take courage. So within the Christmas story is a larger story of the birth of love in human consciousness, a greater love that we revisit, renew, refresh our awareness of, and we can see each figure in the story as a living symbol of our own divine becoming. That Mary is that pure place within us that completely trusts God, completely trusts Spirit, that says, yes, here I am, Lord. I know it's good, whatever you have for me. Completely trust. A pure place in us. And Joseph, we can see, is the intellect who sometimes argues with the Spirit, right? So, no, I don't know about this. But has the capacity to surrender and to cooperate and to understand, oh, okay, I surrender, I let go, I understand, cooperate with Spirit. And of course, the divine child, the Christ child, is our spiritual blueprint that is ever revealing new wings of construction and habitation for our spirit to express. So every thought we can steer back to love. Every time we can press the pause button instead of, some kind of other reaction. Every time we can press the pause button and ask, what would love do here? We were born anew, and we expand our capacity for greater love. And it feels good to give, doesn't it? It just feels good. H. Emily Cady, a Unity author in Lessons in Truth, wrote something over 100 years ago that still blows my mind today when I think of it. So I'm going to share that with you. Listen to this. All love in the universe is God. All love in the universe is God. The love between husband and wife, partners, friends, between parents and children, it's a little bit of God, it's a measure of God, pushed forth in visible form into manifestation. So God's love shows up through people. It's made visible through you, through me. You can't see it otherwise. Spirit needs us to be the visible light, to the visible love shown in the world. So God's love comes through people, and not only to the giver, not only to the receiver, but to the witness as well. So we also see God's love coming through people in our prayers too. I don't have a television. I haven't had one since 2016. But I did see reports of the Midwest and people in extreme weather that have had losses. So we just hold them in prayer as well. And we see God working through people to help all those who need help, to comfort them, to shelter them, to provide them with resources, hope, connection, restoration, and rebuilding their lives. And we know that God works through people, and it is already happening. So to the receiver, to the giver, and to the witness, love shapes us. And when you observe an act of kindness or someone giving a hug or a greeting with joy, you feel your heart lift automatically. And maybe who's that already happened to this morning? Maybe even here. You're saying, oh, there's a joyful greeting. It just lifts us up in the heart. So I want to share a family story. And this one is about my parents. And they used to have this little game they would play with each other. And it was usually right after lunch. And my mom would be clearing the dishes. She'd made a lunch. She'd be clearing the dishes. And my dad would be sitting and reading the paper or doodling. He loved to doodle, on the pictures on the paper and make little designs on people's faces and give them hats and all that stuff. So he would be sitting there with the paper. And so she would finish the dishes and she would come and sit next to him and just kind of dust off her hands like, okay, she'd done her duty. And she would say, "How much do you love me?" And he would, and first she would say, "Do you love me?" And he would say, "I do." And she would say, "How much?" "A lot." And she'd say, "How much is a lot?" And he'd smile up at her and say, "More than all," and spread his arms, "more than all the stars in the sky." And then a few years later, I witnessed the scene again. Well, my father was in the living room in a hospital bed that hospice had provided. And Mom had just finished feeding him lunch. And she set the tray aside and fluffed up his pillows. And she asked, "So, do you love me?" He nodded. She said, "How much?" I was sitting on the couch. He glanced over at me and a little, mischievous grin on half of his face. And he went like this. And he was on a lot of, pain medication those days. He couldn't really speak. So and she said, "Oh, really? That much, huh?" And so he just kind of moved his fingers a little farther. And she said, "Are you sure about that?" And then he pulled his other hand up and went like this. She said, "Oh, okay, that much." And then she just got eye to eye with him, and they were having this staring contest. And slowly, he moved his hands out farther till they couldn't go any farther. And he just said, "More." And then she eased into his arms for a hug and kissed him on the cheek. And I felt like I had witnessed something holy. That I had never seen my parents, the depth of their love for each other. I had never seen this before, but it was a holy moment because something in me realized that this was the strong beam of love that my soul had traveled through to these people, to these beautiful people. This love drew me into their lives. God's love works through people. Scripture reminds us that God is love. And it's in you, it's in me, it's in every person as a way of the holy becoming visible into form, into manifestation. It's already here. And we just have to say yes and choose it. Say yes. I have another affirmation that I love that I'd like to share with you. And I invite you to repeat if you choose. God's life is my life, and I vibrate with harmony and wholeness. God's life is my life, and I vibrate with harmony and wholeness. Once more. God's life is my life, and I vibrate with harmony and wholeness. So we are all part of this greater story of love unfolding. And Jesus showed the way, didn't he? By loving the unlovable, by loving those others found hard to love, those who were outcast or shunned. But divine love reminds us that there are no limits for this love. It can override any limitations of the ego. So we can call on the Christ within whenever we feel a block to love. Because sometimes we can block it out, right? We get in our own way. And we can tell ourselves things that aren't true, like, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too big, I'm too small, I'm too whatever, or not enough whatever. But those are not true. Because wherever we're at, whatever our age, whatever our financial state, we can share our love. Our love is important. It's God's love coming through. It's a blessing. So when we let ourselves be moved by love and be that inlet and outlet of love, some surprising things can happen. Have you noticed? I found a story the other day of this couple, Mary Harmon, David Long, and they met during the pandemic. They met, fell in love, and got married. And what's extraordinary about this for me is that they were each 84 years old. That they were both widowed and living in a senior retirement facility. And they talk about how they met. And Mary said she had surgery on her knee, and David was helping her to her room. David says, about the fourth time, she said, "Can I give you a hug?" And Mary said that she kind of fell for him when she said, "I saw him helping everybody. Anybody who couldn't get out of their chair or couldn't get something, he hopped up and went for it." So when we're love and expression, we have eyes to see that love in action, some magical things can happen. So I love this as a reminder that you were never too old for love to find us or to find companionship, to start a new journey. We're never too whatever to start a new journey, never too old, never too young. We can start a new journey right now, and it starts up here with a change of thought, change of heart. So we're going to do our last part of the service with those tags. If you could get those out, and I will share what those are for.
Did anybody not get one?
Yeah, raise your hand, please, if you need tags or a pen or something to write with.
Reverend, what are you supposed to write on it? Or is it supposed to be empty?
What?
What are you supposed to write on it?
Oh, I'm going to tell you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's going to go on these here. So raise your hand if you need one or more. Thank you, ushers. Thanks, Dennis. Okay, so this part of our service, we're going to honor the seasons of our lives and those we have loved, and those whom we love who may not be physically with us this Christmas for whatever reason, but are very much on our hearts. So you have 2 gift tags. And the first tag is for you to write the name of someone or someones who are on your heart this Christmas season, that you miss them, and you really appreciate the gift of love that they have given you in your life. That's the first one. And then 2.
I only passed one.
Oh, okay. So 2 tags. Okay, it looks like we're all set. Thank you, ushers. 2 tags. So I'll lead us in a little prayer too. So the first tag is for someone that you miss, someone who's really on your heart this Christmas season. Someone who's given you the gift of love. And the second tag is for your Christmas wish. So think of your inner child that is, has a longing or a wish, a secret wish. That is for the other tag. And you won't be sharing these with anyone. These are private. So I'm going to lead us in a little prayer, and then Christine will just play a little bit of soft music while we write, and then I'll bring us back to close the service. And so we just take a breath and center in, knowing that we live in the heart of God and the heart of God lives within us. And so, loving Spirit, we come together to honor all phases of our lives, times of joy and times of loss, times of fullness and times of emptiness, times of activity and times of rest. By acknowledging our grief, we open the way for joy to enter. By acknowledging the longings of our hearts, we open more to your great love that heals, harmonizes, blesses us, and sets us free. So now we take time to write the name of someone on our hearts and our Christmas wish, as Christine will play a little bit here. And so I invite you to take these home and put them in a special place. And if you have a tree, to hang them on your tree. Or if you have a wreath or an altar, to put them in a visible place to remind you of love, the power of love. And the power of love that you are, that you give and receive. And so as we bring our service to a close now, let us wrap our memories around us like a colorful garment that rests lightly on our shoulders, but that also adds color and texture to our lives. And let us open to creating a holiday celebration that honors who we were, who we are now, and who we are becoming. Thank you, God. Amen.